My name is Matthew Evans, and welcome to the Wild Blue Yonder. Ever since I was a kid, I've loved the outdoors. Some of my favorite memories are from time spent hiking and camping in my home state of New Mexico. I developed a love for exploring this beautiful world that my Creator has made, and the satisfaction of conquering a great hike and seeing these remarkable destinations in the wild. Now, I'm a filmmaker and video editor in my late 20s, and although many of my films over the years have been shot in wild places, I never fully connected my passions for filmmaking and the outdoors until now. Welcome to the first episode of the Wild Blue Yonder, a new outdoor documentary series from Los Matatas Studios. I'm inviting you to come along for the adventure as I chronicle my experiences in some of the most extraordinary outdoor locations in New Mexico and beyond. If you're interested in heading to some of these places yourself, that's awesome. I'll be giving lots of helpful info about every location we visit. And if you're just along for the adventure, then I'm glad you're here too. Either way, let's journey into the wild.
Here we go. All we need is an open road and a chance to see a never-ending world that's beautiful. Here we go with the sunlight on our skin. It's a brand new day. It's ours to take and we will let it in. This is where the adventure begins.
For this inaugural episode of the Wild Blue Yonder series, my fiancée Soraya Getty and I headed to Nambe Lake, a high alpine lake above Ski Santa Fe in the Pecos Wilderness of New Mexico. Getting to Ski Santa Fe requires navigating through downtown Santa Fe, but once you make it through those many turns on tight streets, you'll enjoy a gorgeous drive through Hyde Memorial State Park and the mountains above Santa Fe. Eventually, about an hour and a half after leaving Albuquerque, we arrived at Ski Santa Fe and parked near the Windsor Trailhead. Also along for the hike today was a third member of our party, Soraya's Husky named Nova. The Windsor Trail is one of the most famous and popular trails in New Mexico, and for good reason. It provides access to many of New Mexico's best and most stunning peaks and lakes scattered throughout the Pecos Wilderness. On this day, we were headed to Nambe Lake, which at just under 7 miles round trip is one of the shorter hikes that uses the Windsor Trail. For the first stage of our hike, we faced a 3/4 of a mile climb out of the ski basin and over the ridge to the Pecos Wilderness boundary.
Nova, that's not the trail. That's not the trail, Nova.
We have set out on the Windsor Trail, so we're going to be on this for about 2.5 miles of the hike today, and then we'll cut off onto the Nambe Lake Trail where it gets a lot harder and a lot more interesting. But this first section is also a challenge. First 3/4 of a mile of Windsor climbs a lot to kind of get up over this ridge over here, and then it flattens out and it actually goes downhill, gently downhill for quite a ways. It's always a good idea at the beginning of this trail to pace yourself, because you're feeling good, ready to hike, and then you go too fast and you're like, whew, and you can already tell I'm already breathing hard right now because I'm trying to talk while heading up this hill. So yeah, just pace yourself going up this first section, and then you're gonna get a nice long break before you get to the real challenge of the hike. So let's do this.
Yeah, it is definitely not the easiest hike right at the beginning. It's pretty moderately steep, But you know, I have my lucky hiking socks on. I have these, so it's gonna be a good hike.
After about 3/4 of a mile, we arrived at the Pecos Wilderness boundary. To the right, a trail at this fence continues up to Lake Peak, but our route for today was straight through the boundary. If you're interested, a plaque at the fence tells a brief history of the trail and the man it was named after, Henry Windsor. Once we crossed into the Pecos Wilderness, the trail began heading downhill, and the break after that initial climb gave us a chance to enjoy the incredible scenery surrounding us. From the Pecos Wilderness boundary to the junction with the Nambe Lake Trail, we traveled about 1.5 miles along a gently sloping but rocky downhill stretch of the trail. Soon enough, we arrived at the Nambe Lake Junction. Here, we took a moment to enjoy views of Santa Fe Baldy towering in the distance before beginning to head uphill once again for the most difficult portion of the hike. From this point, the lake is only about 1 mile away, but there is also about 1,000 feet of elevation gain left as well. Even with the challenge of this last mile of the trail, it's also one of the best parts of the hike, because as soon as you leave the Windsor Trail, you are joined by the Rio Nambe, running parallel to the trail as it rushes down from Nambe Lake above.
Definitely a 9 out of 10 waterfall.
Why is that?
Because it's got a lot of moss that automatically gives it points. And it's not, I don't know, it's just not disappointing. You could stare at it for hours. That's a 9 out of a 10. Got some nice sunlight dappling going on. Not too big, not too loud. It's also not too small. Just good waterfall.
Got any more waterfall ratings?
8.5 out of 10.
Do the wildflowers help?
Oh, I didn't see those. That's a 9 out of 10. They're so pretty.
As we continued to climb higher, we forded the Rio Nambe several times, climbed up multiple steep rocky sections that presented the most difficult challenges of the hike, and then breathed easier when we reached several beautiful high alpine meadows, with Nambe Lake still further above us.
Yeah.
before long, we made it to Nambe Lake itself. At an elevation of approximately 11,300 feet, Nambe Lake is nestled in a steep-sided bowl beneath the 12,400-foot Lake Peak, and it is without a doubt one of the most gorgeous, peaceful, awe-inspiring locations in all of New Mexico.
Do you like the lake, Nova?
It was a pretty nice trail. There were a couple spots where it was pretty rough, but
Yeah.
it was just steep.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't steep for a very long time.
Sure.
There were some nice breaks in between.
Nova is very much enjoying the lake. I don't think I've ever seen her clamber around in water this much, but being a New Mexico Husky, I guess she doesn't really get the opportunity to do that very much, does she?
No, not really.
But she's having a good time.
We're just keeping her on the leash because she's a rescue, so we're not entirely confident that she will stay with us in the outdoors. She might just book it, trying to chase something.
Mm-hmm.
And also because she's a rescue, she's not good with other dogs. So as much fun as it is to let dogs run around free and wild in the woods, it's kind of stressful when we come around someone who doesn't have their dog on a leash.
Yeah.
She's on a leash, so we can try to keep her away from them, but it's hard to wrangle someone else's dog when they're not on a leash, and we don't want anything to happen to either Nova or the other dog. So I think we should probably just call this episode Nova Goes to Nambe.
Yeah.
Before long, we left the lake and began our descent. We headed back the way we came on this out-and-back hike, passing the rushing waterfalls of the Rio Nambe again, and making our way along the rocky trail through the conifer and aspen forests. And after 3.5 miles of return trip, we arrived back at the Ski Santa Fe parking lot. In the midst of a busy summer of wedding preparations, this day hike had been a welcome respite in the mountains to celebrate the incredible creation that God has made, and a great way to kick off this new series as well. And as we drove back to Albuquerque, I knew that the adventures had only just begun. Thank you so much for watching our very first episode of the Wild Blue Yonder. If you enjoyed today's episode, please click the like button to let us know, and comment below with what your favorite part was. And finally, get outdoors and have your own adventures too. I'll see you out on the trails.
Deep